What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Oscar's Cozy Corner. Now, you didn't think that even though I'm on vacation, I'd leave you without a little DreamSnap build for this week, did you? Today, I do have a little speed build of the Fairy Haven DreamSnap. I have already submitted this DreamSnap. Full disclaimer, I submitted it last Thursday, but I saved this video until now, so you don't feel like I am kind of like fully gone. We usually stream tonight, but I thought, you know what? Let's give a little video, a little speed build, and you can actually see what I can do in a much shorter time frame. So this only took me about 30 minutes. For some reason, when I'm on stream, it's spiral. 3 hours later, and we're still there. I will say this was a fun theme. I enjoyed the different items. I do have some thoughts about whether DreamSnaps are becoming pay to win, but I feel like that is an entirely separate video that I'm not getting the chance to make because I am not at home. Maybe I will revisit that at some point. It depends what items come to the premium shop this week and what the DreamSnap theme ends up being. Then we might have some things to discuss. But aside from all that, I had a great time with this build. I love how it turned out, and it might actually be one of my favorite DreamSnaps that I've actually done recently. To make it a little bit easier, I did go back to doing symmetry, so you will see that I do a symmetrical build again, but it turns out pretty nice, I'm not gonna lie. The new camera features just make it so much easier to play around with the snap, but I'm not gonna talk too much about it. Let's just get straight into the build. We'll do it together. I'll talk a little bit over the top, and we'll take it from there. Let's go. All right, so I've already got into my little outfit for this one, and I'm using the, I don't know what this is called, I think Flower Castle or something. It's from the extra big Moonstone bundle, the one that we got with the mushroom outfit. I haven't had a chance to use this in a build yet, but I absolutely love this castle. The colors on it, the tones are absolutely stunning, and they match perfectly with the star path. I feel like Gameloft knew what they were doing. This almost feels kind of like an accompanying piece for the actual star path, and in a way, instead of the teapot house, I know that they reserved this for the extra large Moonstone bundle, but it kind of feels like it could have been the bonus house for the star path, but they gave us the little teapot instead, which I'm not mad at, but it's quite clear that they were kind of like made to fit together. So you'll see that I've dropped that in, and then I've brought in those kind of like fairy balloons. Can't remember the exact name, but they've got the glitter dust coming down off the top of them. And then I brought in the star path gazebos, the big flower petal versions, and this is the purple one. I will say that those gazebos and the Tiana one, which I'm putting down right now, might be some of my favorite items in the game. I just think they look absolutely stunning. The colors, the details, especially on like the flower petals and stuff. I know that Gameloft loves to do kind of like a gazebo. We've seen a few variations now, but this definitely is my favorite one so far. You'll see me dropping some mechanical parts. That's just so I know where the center of this build is, so I know where to stand with my character. It makes things a lot easier for kind of like framing stuff up. So that is a little tip if you don't use it already. And then I'm bringing in these, I can't remember what these are called. I think they're like the archways or the floral banners or something like that. They're kind of a banner, but not quite. So I'm just moving those around because they do light up, and I'm trying to get the placement on those at this point. I do try a couple of variations, but I actually really end up loving the framing of it when it's right over the top of my character. It just kind of like gives the edge of the photo just a really nice glow and a really nice, like, I don't know, something in the foreground to look at. You'll see me testing a couple of the time of the day scenarios here, because if you are quick enough, I believe it might, I'm not sure, it might only be with controller, but you might be able to do it on keyboard and mouse as well. If you adjust it super quickly, you get different lighting options before the game kind of like kicks in to change the time, if that makes sense. So it's like kind of like the halfway between the both of them when it blends them, and it can unlock even more options. So that is something worth bearing in mind if you do like to play around with the lighting. I knew that I wanted these wheelbarrows to frame the bottom of the shot up, so I knew that I had flowers at the top, flowers at the bottom. This whole star path, I'm not gonna lie, maybe I'll do a star path ranking video, but this whole star path might be one of my favorites so far that I've done. And I've not done them all, but this is really high up there because the item quality this time around is just really nice. Actually, when I first saw it, I wasn't entirely convinced, but now that I've got the items and I can actually decorate with them, I'm like, yeah, I'm vibing. The fairy circle is always a good look, and I was like, Fairy DreamSnap, I kind of have to use the fairy circle. I'm going to stand right in the center of it, and just the tones of like the whole build, because it's all pinks and purples, and then I'm in the Clarion dress, which is obviously kind of like bright gold. I just think it sets my character off really nicely, and it makes me look the center of attention naturally. You'll see there that I was trying a little bit with the lighting. So what you can actually do is you can get the lights to turn on during daytime with that slider really quickly without it going to sunset. So it's definitely worth playing around and giving that a try if you want to unlock a couple of extra lighting options. I actually don't keep this path. So even though I'm filling the space in right now, I do actually get rid of it. I think it works with the path as well, but because I wanted kind of like a more natural and earthy feel, I do decide to get rid of that. And the gold of it just kind of like takes a little bit of focus away from the character in the gold dress, which is what we want to keep the focus on. I do think that the Tinkerbell bundle that these lamps came with is not the strongest, but I do think that these lamps are incredible. So even though they were 2,000 moonstones for the whole bundle, I feel like I've kind of paid 2,000 moonstones just for these lamps, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it for now. It's always worth trying a couple of different things. You'll see me trying those flower bushes, but I don't actually like them. They felt a bit too dark. Even though they're purple, they just felt a little bit too dark. But what we can do with the beach grass is it does clip into a lot of different things, and you are able to kind of like get it really close to stuff. I do find that it clips. I don't know if there's a difference in the grid. It seems to clip better in the valley rather than on a floating island, but I know that the floating islands kind of have some quirks. So if you do this build kind of in the valley, or if you wanted to replicate it, you might have more luck there. But for what I needed for this snap, it worked fine. I like the beach grass. The tone matches the peaceful meadow island, which is what I was going for. And it just adds a bit of like texture and visual interest to the ground. I'm just rotating these around and placing a couple down. I know that some of them are out of the frame, but I like to fill the space because I like to do a whole build for DreamSnaps. And then I'm just going through the path menu, looking for some rock, seeing if I can add any kind of like natural elements as well. I did start with these Forgotten Lands kind of like mini rocks because I liked the purple on them. But again, the same as the flower bushes, the purple just felt a little bit too dark for what I was going for. It was at this point that when I was going in and out of kind of like the camera mode, the spaces down the side of that sort of like flower mansion in front of the balloons were looking a little bare, which is why I threw some of the beach grass down the side as well, just to add a little bit of height if I could get it in. I thought I had some rock rogues left. I didn't, and I couldn't be bothered going to Scrooge's, so I decided, yeah, we're not going to do that. And funnily enough, I placed those garden path stones down at this point, and then I get rid of them, but later on in the video I do actually bring them back because they match the color of the house. There's a little bit of beige on that sort of like mansion, and the color of the stones tie that together, so I end up going back to that. I did just want to take a look at this point because I was like, is there something here that's kind of gold that I can tie in with the character? And I looked through the whole yellow tab and I was like, no. I was like, I'll just leave it as me. If you watch me on stream, you know I like to play around with rotating things. We can spend 20 or 30 minutes just rotating stuff around. So it's not surprising that this made it into a video of mine as well, because I didn't clip anything from this. I didn't cut anything out. This is just my process. So this is just what I was doing, sped up a little bit. And then I was kind of like, let me add in some flower patches. I wasn't going to do what I did with the Topsy-Turvy Tea Party build and like flood the ground with them. I only wanted a couple. So I just thought if I bring them in, it just adds, again, another little element, a bit more of a height to the ground. And because we've got the beach grass anyway, that's already quite high. So it doesn't look like a pastel patch, just full across the ground. It does, like, I don't know. It just breaks it up a little bit. The background was looking a little bare. This is the only place I kind of use something yellow. And I think that it's just enough to not detract. So you'll see that I put them behind the balloons, but they kind of get lost. So I moved them into the gap just down the side, and then I put a couple more just to kind of like fill out the skyline a little tiny bit. They're not huge, these trees, but they were just enough to kind of like peek over the back of the balloons. And somehow, I don't know, they were exactly the same color as my dress. So I was very happy. I know that the background doesn't even really get looked at, sort of like when people speed vote, but I'm kind of a perfectionist. I love putting detail into stuff. I love making sure that like little details are in there if people do want to look. So that's kind of why I brought in these windmills from Mythopia as well, because they do have the little bits of pink on them. The color of it did match the house. It's that like pinky beige that I was talking about. So there is like a through line in the color as well. But you're never really going to see them unless you sort of like open the snap in full screen. And I know that most people do not do that. I was trying to get these chairs in because I like these from the star path as well, but I just couldn't quite find a place for them. I settled on leaving them there for the time being. I can't remember if I moved them or not, but then I remembered I had a couple of gaps just along the back that I tried to fill in with the tree because the trunk of the larger ones is so tall and then the canopy starts higher up. So I was like, let me fill in the gaps, and I put a bunch of these trees down, and then they didn't they didn't fill anything in, so it was a waste of time. But you can see it really coming together now. It's like pretty much almost there. I was gonna do a zoomed in shot, and I've started using the castle wall to do that because you don't require the camera to go as low down as with Oswald's car. I really like the zoomed in version as well, but for this snap, I was like, no, I like the framing that we've done sort of like for a full screen version, so I'm gonna go with that. But I did move the actual wheelbarrows. I duplicated them and I added those behind my character just to add a little bit more visual interest and a little bit more texture, and I like that placement. Even though it started raining while I was doing it, at least we can change the weather in the camera mode now. At this point, it was really just details. Like, I'd already done the bulk of the snap, and I knew that I had, and I was like, just playing around, and I was kind of like, the snap is done. What am I doing? But then I did replace these paths with these stones, and I was like, no, that ties it together because it definitely ties in with the color of the house. And finally, I just wanted to bring in some of the fireflies just to make it feel like it had a little bit of pixie dust in the air as well. Gorgeous. So here's the final snap. I was really happy with how this turned out. This is what I was talking about the brightness. I know that this is full on, and this is a very full on snap, but the brightness, when you mess about with the slider really quickly, you can get all of the lights to turn on in daytime mode with a very slight hint of sunset. We'll see how it does. I know that this is busy. I know that there's a lot going on, but I really love it. I think it fits the theme. I think it feels welcoming, warm. I don't know. We'll see how it does. All right, gang, that is it for this video. I do hope that you enjoyed that little speed build, that little process of how I came to create that Fairy Haven snap. Like I said at the top, I do love how it turned out. I think it might be one of my favorite snaps recently. It just kind of like all fit together. And we didn't even need to use too many of the new items. That sort of like flower lamp is the ticket one for this week, for me at least. But I feel like the Star Path had such good items in it this time that they really worked for this snap. So I love the vibe. Pinky purple. That gold clarion dress just in the middle pops because it's such a nice contrast to the rest of the snap. What can I say? I'm in love. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to give it a like, maybe even subscribe to the channel for more Disney Dreamlight Valley content. I will be able to stream our next DreamSnap next Monday, so if you want to stop by and say hello, you're more than welcome to join us. But with all that being said, for today, I'm going to leave it there. I will catch you in the next one, and I will, of course, see you in the valley.